I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. We're starting tonight in Clackamas County and a call to duty. The former longtime sheriff there retired only to feel the call to get back in the action to serve the people. The return of Craig Roberts. That's our big story tonight. Some folks just not made for retirement. Roberts will be the next chair for the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners. He's replacing the outspoken conservative Tootie Smith. The board is made up of 5 people who live in the county and are elected to terms of 4 years. They set county policies, department budgets. They have the right to send countywide measures to a vote of the people. The board chair runs the weekly commission meetings, also sets the agendas, and also has a vote just like other board members. It's a powerful job. Roberts ousted Smith by a sizable margin. We had a chance to sit down with him after the election and talk about the campaign.
I feel very blessed that really so many voters believed in my vision, and the incredible amount of supporters is really heartwarming. It was a grassroots effort. We took the high road, and what really kind of impacted me is actually seeing a senior on a fixed income mailing me a check for $10, or somebody sending me a regular monthly check, and how much they believed in me. And we just really, as I've said, it was a grassroots effort. We had small business, large business, a tremendous amount of mayors and other leaders that stepped forward to support me, and I'm just really excited about the opportunities ahead.
Robert's style is a bit different than Smith's, who can be at times abrupt, although I've always found her to be quite quotable, to tell you the truth. But it's not a style that everyone enjoys with Tootie Smith. Roberts has said he's going to change that.
I think one of the things I heard is people didn't feel like they were being listened to. And that's my commitment, to be a good listener. And I really believe it starts at the very beginning, and that's where I need to do a lot of listening, asking a lot of questions of city leaders and others about, where do you see the shortfalls are. And let me say, there's a lot of great things happen in Clackamas County, and it's my hope to really take us to the next level and address concerns that I've always felt impacted our community. As I've mentioned, drug addiction and mental illness are really impacting not just here in the region, but across this country, and would like to see us really step up and make some things happen, honestly, with the sense of urgency. And that's what I have been good at, of bringing people together and kind of saying this is something we need to act on now. And when people are depending on us, it makes all the difference in the world. And I've spoken with a lot of family members that have loved ones, and a lot of times they'd actually appreciate seeing them in our jail because they knew they were getting some health care, they were getting some other things. But the fact is, that's not the place. It really isn't, and my hope is to create some innovative new ideas. I've got a lot about that issue and have had a lot of experience as well in that field.
Clackamas County is the 3rd most populated in Oregon, with more than 421,000 residents. Roberts said it has the same problems as Multnomah and Washington counties, and he should know. He served as sheriff there for 15 years. As you heard him mention, he's pointing to things like drugs and crime and mental illness, and he plans to lean in on mental health.
One of my priorities has always been trying to address the mental health issue. And as sheriff, I was always frustrated because we were the last stop, which we shouldn't be, for people struggling with mental illness. And they would cycle through jail all the time. It really wasn't a place for them. It's incredibly expensive. And as sheriff, we ended up purchasing 2 homes for people struggling with mental illness, transitioned into long-term housing. And my hope is really to expand those kinds of things, that we had a house manager in it, and really just kind of helping people move forward. And really, I also see the opportunity. I've researched a lot of programs around the country, and I really believe we need in our county a mental health center, such as an urgent care model. where people can go 24 hours a day, 365 a year. And on top of that, I believe that we need 24-hour response with social workers and people trained in mental health to respond to those issues. And those are the individuals that should be dealing with that. Right now, as sheriff, I started a program. It wasn't 24 hours. And I believe that that's really kind of the next step. And what includes in that whole program is really you have to work with the hospitals, county mental health, public safety, because it impacts all of us, including fire. So that is really, once again, about bringing those stakeholders to the table, look how we can better address this and make improvements on really how we treat and handle people struggling with mental illness.
I think that's fascinating. You're hearing from the next leader of Clackamas County. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Roberts, by the way, has described himself as a fiscal conservative. He said one of his first projects will be digging into the finances of the county's new courthouse, which is under construction right now. The cost was first estimated at $189 million. That was in 2021. It has since ballooned up to $313 million.
Well, I think most importantly is making sure that as we move forward that such as example the courthouse, my intention is to really identify truly what is that total cost of the courthouse and make that available, have opportunities for citizen testimony to ask questions about it, and to make sure that we're putting out information on a regular basis about where we're at, and making sure that citizens know I want to hear from them. And if we're going to put some sort of facility that is in a community, I want to make sure I hear both sides of it, and together we'll kind of weigh the outcome and figure out the best direction to move forward.
All right, that's Craig Roberts, the next board chair for Clackamas County. Now it's your turn to weigh in, will you? If you're in Clackamas County and you're excited about the future with Craig Roberts, let us know, will you? If you're worried, that's fine too. Let us know that. Share your thoughts with us. Email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. Now let's take a look at how Portland's first ever ranked choice voting election went. Yesterday, the Oregonian published an in-depth story on it, and we think it's worth your time. The story comes from politics reporters Shane Dixon Kavanaugh and Mark Friesen. The headline says it all. Ranked choice debut causes voter engagement to crater. 1 in 5 who cast ballots chose no one for city council. Well, that's a pretty stark review of a historic first. After all, ranked choice voting was sold as a way to increase the participation of many in our city, especially people who are overlooked or ignored. But in fact, it did not do that. And it won't find these numbers from the county, by the way. They may not report them for another month or so. So instead of waiting, the Oregonian did its own math. And as you saw with the headline, the results were quite revealing.
We're looking at the total number of ballots cast by voters in Portland, total. And then we look at what the gap is between those votes cast and how many people voted in a city council race. And so citywide, 20% of all Portland voters who voted last week did not vote for a city council candidate. And in District 1, like we said, it was very high, 29%. But, you know, even in high voter participation areas like North and Northeast Portland, the West Side, and Southeast Portland, I mean, I think those were 18%, 17%, and 17%.
Here's a reminder of those new districts that Shane talked about. District 1 is east of I-205, 2 is north and northeast Portland, 3 is much of southeast, and 4 is west of the Willamette River and a few neighborhoods of southeast as well. So he's saying the citywide average was 20% of voters who turned in their ballots skipped the ranked choice section for city council. It was highest in East Portland, 29% of people skipping over that section completely. And that's only slightly ironic because this charter change with ranked choice was touted as finally giving East Portlanders a voice on council. But nearly 1 in 3 of those folks did not bother to vote for anyone on the council. Now, it's not unusual for folks to skip some parts of their ballot, but that many? That's unheard of here. For example, Shane says 4 years ago, the number who skipped the mayor's race but voted for other things on the ballot, that was just 6%.
And I did a bunch of reporting on ranked choice voting in the United States and how it's played out in other jurisdictions, not talking to necessarily advocates or proponents, but to academics who study this and have done the studies and research. And there has been a number of studies and research that has shown that ranked choice voting contests, especially when you're doing it for the first time, because of the sort of higher demand that it places on voters, it makes it more difficult. And so some people will choose not to engage. These studies have also found that it tends to have, perhaps unsurprisingly, a disproportionate impact on lower income voters and voters from more historically underrepresented areas and communities.
And when you say impact, you mean they're the ones who don't vote?
Yeah, so there's the hope and the promise that ranked choice voting offers potentially is that it will create greater civic engagement and also get folks who have not traditionally participated in these types of elections to have a reason to participate. But what we're sort of going to be wrestling with here is, while we want to see more folks who don't normally turn out for these types of elections to be voting, we're also seeing that ranked choice voting, at least in the first go around, was depressing the votes in those particular areas and communities. Potentially. I mean, I don't want to, claim correlation or causation here, but we're just sort of highlighting that our debut with ranked choice voting did seem to have a pretty significant impact on voter participation in our mayor and city council races.
How about that? Shane says he's curious now to look into what happened over the last 2 years with voter education. There was a fair amount of money and a lot of time and effort put into educating voters, and a significant number of people still did not take part. There are all sorts of other interesting tidbits and data that Shane and the team boiled down for their article. You can read it all on OregonLive.com. It is behind a paywall, but you should pay for it. It's well worth it. Coming up next on The Story, Blair Best takes us to North Portland, where a long-delayed homeless shelter is finally open now. This is the one that had a grand opening despite it, not actually opening. What neighbors now have to say about it, which might surprise you, and we'll hear from a few people who are staying there for their opinion on how things are going. That's coming up next when The Story returns. Now to the homeless crisis in the city of Portland. A shelter on the north side is finally open after months of delays, which included a grand opening celebration that definitely did jump the gun there. Today, Blair Best went to the Arbor Lodge shelter. That's off North Lombard Street, the 17th shelter that Multnomah County has opened in the past 4 years.
For months, it's been nothing but a question when this former North Portland drugstore would turn into a long-term homeless shelter. Multnomah County's Joint Office of Homeless Services purchased the building off Lombard Street in 2020 using $3 million of federal money and spent another $9 million renovating it. Over the years, it was a temporary shelter and vaccine clinic. To some neighbors' surprise, the goal was to make it a long-term shelter.
When they bought the property, they didn't even say that was going to happen.
County officials held a shelter grand opening this past June.
I actually drove by and saw a bunch of seemed to be city bigwigs and little suits having they had an opening party.
But due to unexpected construction delays, it remained empty until now.
But they accommodate everybody.
The shelter now serves more than 100 people. Christian, an Army veteran, is one of them.
If this place is nice and clean, it's a great place to be.
There are a total of 106 beds, 88 congregate style, and 18 tiny homes, bringing the total number of shelter beds in Multnomah County to nearly 3,000.
It's been quiet, nothing, no real issues.
And now it just seems really peaceful and people just kind of come and go. Normally it looks like it's less drama outside.
But inside, that's not the case for everyone.
It's crazy. It's the system is broken.
Derek has stayed there for 2 weeks.
But now they got all different people out the street coming in here and they smoking drugs, they fentanyl all in the dorm. It look like you're in prison. That's the setting. Bunks, like you're in dorms, like you're in prison. That's basically what the setup is.
A spokesperson for Multnomah County told KGW in part, quote, "The shelter incorporates elements of intentional trauma-informed design. It's not just a safe place to sleep, but also provides on-site services that help people achieve long-term stability."
When you're bringing people in that are on the streets, you're going to get that.
Blair joins me now. Blair, neighbors you talked with seem okay with the shelter opening near them, which is not what we often hear when things like this open.
So, Pat, the neighbors we talked with on camera are okay with the shelter opening. We also talked with a man who lives directly behind the camera here, right across the street from the shelter. He tells us that abandoned cars now take up the parking spaces in front of his house, and that the people who stay at the shelter stay up late and make a lot of noise, keeping him and his dogs up. So there are definitely still some concerns.
How exactly does the shelter process work? Can you kind of walk us through this?
So basically it's referral based, so that means there won't be people waiting in line to get in. They don't accept walk-ins, and once people are in there, they can stay for as long as they want while they work with case managers to create a plan and next steps towards permanent housing. That's the goal here.
All right, and I know that you talked with some of the folks staying there. Where did they come from?
So this is the interesting part, Pat. You know, I thought that many of the people staying in this shelter would be coming from the streets, maybe some nearby homeless camps. There's a big one right down the street this way that I've been to before. But I've only talked with 2 people who stay here, and one was previously at a shelter run by the same operator, Do Good Multnomah. He was moved to this one. And then another man, he has a home in California, and he's here in Portland getting a medical procedure, and says he's staying at this shelter because it's cheaper than spending money for a hotel room.
Wow, okay. Interesting. Haven't heard that one before. Thanks for the update, Blair. We appreciate it. And while we're on the topic of homelessness, tonight we have new numbers in from the federal government on how many veterans are without a home in Oregon, either living in a shelter or on the streets. You just saw that man that Blair was talking to. The big takeaway, veteran homelessness reached a record low nationwide, and it's down here in Oregon as well. Here's the encouraging numbers. Just over 1,400 veterans experienced homelessness in Oregon as of this past January. That's not the encouraging part, but it is down 11% from the 1,575 that were counted the year before. That's the encouraging part. Nationwide, there are nearly 33,000 homeless veterans, around 14,000 of whom are unsheltered. Those numbers are down from more than 35,000 and 15,000 in 2023. The numbers are the results of the latest point-in-time count, which represents a snapshot of homelessness. A count is done on a single night in January all across the country. The numbers are then submitted to the feds. Many have criticized these counts on a local and statewide scale as being way too low and missing all kinds of people without homes. But whether you think it's accurate or not, it is data and points that are often used by officials as they make and adjust homeless policies. Now let's get to some of your emails and voicemails following our coverage yesterday of Veterans Day. We said that we would highlight and honor some of the veterans in your lives, as long as you let us know about them. And we're going to start with this one from Marcia and Mario. They want to honor their friend and World War II veteran Tom Dagan. Tom is 98 years old and still living in Portland. His senior year of high school was interrupted, they tell us, by the military draft, and Tom served in the Navy. Thanks for your service, Tom. This next one came from a viewer named Terry. She wanted to honor Doug Bird, who served in the Marines before getting a PhD in political science, and he now teaches at Portland Community College. Terry says she's incredibly proud to call Doug a dear friend.
I'd just like to give a couple of shout-outs to a couple of veterans that came home from Vietnam. One was named Barney. He was a tank recovery specialist in Vietnam. And Terry Gower. He said he was a grunt in Vietnam, but they both had some tear-jerking stories to tell. And I'd just like to say, those are probably a couple of my closest friends.
All right, thanks for sharing that, Mitch. Dudley wrote in to us, please honor my father-in-law, Fred Steinkruger, for his service in the USS Daniel Boone and the USS Arinsky. He served on the USS Arinsky during the ammunition fire on board. Thanks for your hard work, Fred. A viewer named Sandra sent this in. Robert Nelson, Senior of the Yakima tribe, was a paratrooper stationed in Japan. Sandra tells us Robert enjoyed fishing at Celilo Falls when he came back stateside. Marcia and Don sent us these photos this afternoon. They wanted to honor their late father, Paul Weber Jr., who served in the Navy from 1942 to 1946. He enlisted during his senior year at Benson High School, a year after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Paul worked on the USS Atlas, which arrived to the beaches of Normandy 2 days after the D-Day invasion. And we'll end with these two men tonight, Doug Ferris and Chuck Malone. They're the grandfathers of our director, Megan, who is behind the scenes making the show happen night after night, and she's there right now. She wanted to make sure they got a little time in the spotlight to honor their service to our country. Congratulations to all. And to all the military veterans out there tonight, I know your day was yesterday, but can't be said enough. Thank you for your service. Keep it right here. We're back in a minute. The KGW Great Toy Drive is going on right now, and you can help us support thousands of kids this holiday season. Giving is easy. Just drop off a new unwrapped toy at any IQ credit union, Fred Meyer, or local Toyota dealership, or visit kgw.com/toy to donate online. And this is a great week to give because local Toyota dealers are matching all donations up to $15,000. Just visit kgw.com/toy. Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, the story, our collective story, that never ends. For those of you watching live, the good stuff's coming your way next. For the rest of you watching online, don't forget, you can stream the story on your own schedule. Just download the free KGW Plus app. It's available now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. In the meantime, have a great Tuesday night. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 6:30.